Ambassador Miho Kim stood in the massive crystal chamber that floated in space around a dying star. He had been to many council meetings before, but this one felt different. The air was thick with fear. Representatives from 47 different alien species filled the enormous hall, their voices creating a storm of worried sounds. The Zenthari leader, a tall insect-like creature named Thexerin, raised 4 of his 6 arms high into the air. The noise slowly died down. His mouth parts clicked together as he began to speak, and small devices translated his words into every language in the room. The Vrek swarm has destroyed 12 of our colony worlds, Thexerin said. His voice was steady, but Miho could hear the worry behind it. They are not stopping. They cannot stop. The hive mind only knows one thing: hunger. They will consume everything in their path. Miho watched as the other ambassadors shifted nervously in their seats. Some whispered to each other. Others sat in stunned silence. He had read the reports about the Vreks. They were like locusts but intelligent. They moved from world to world, taking everything and leaving nothing behind. A huge reptilian general named Kravos hit his thick tail against the floor. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. We need soldiers. We need ships. We need weapons. Every species in this council must send military forces. This is not a choice anymore. More worried voices filled the room. Miho knew what they were thinking. Most of these species had been at peace for hundreds of years. Their military forces were small, used only for ceremonies and protecting borders from small threats. They had never faced real war. Not like this. The human delegation will now speak, Thexerin announced. All eyes turned to Miho. He could feel thousands of alien eyes watching him. Behind him, his assistant Yuna Park stepped forward and handed him a tablet computer. He took it but didn't look at it. He already knew what he needed to say. Earth's leaders had been very clear in their message. The human government has carefully reviewed the Council's request for military support, Miho said clearly. His voice was calm and strong. We accept your request. We will send our forces to fight the Vrek swarm. The room exploded with surprised sounds. Clicks, chirps, whistles and growls came from every direction. Kravos leaned forward from his platform, his yellow eyes fixed on Miho. You accept? Just like that? The Saurian general asked. Do you understand what you are saying yes to? Do you know what kind of enemy the Vreks are? Yes, we understand, Miho replied. An amphibian creature named Kelther stood up on his platform. His skin was wet and shiny under the lights. Ambassador Kim, your species only joined this council 50 years ago. You are still very new here. You have never fought in a galactic war before. The Vrek swarm is not like anything you have ever seen. They will destroy your ships. They will kill your soldiers. Are you really ready for this? Miho looked directly at Kelther. How much time do we have to prepare our forces and bring them here? Thexerin turned to speak with several military advisors standing near him. They talked quietly for a moment. Then he turned back to face Miho. Most species need at least 3 to 6 months to properly organize and move their military forces across space, Thexerin said. Can humanity manage within that time frame? Give us 2 weeks, Miho said simply. The entire chamber erupted in chaos. Ambassadors jumped to their feet. Some were shouting. Others were laughing. Kravos's deep, rumbling laugh was the loudest sound in the room. 2 weeks. Kravos said between laughs. Impossible. Just moving transport ships into position takes longer than 2 weeks. You humans are either very brave or very stupid. Maybe we are both, Miho said with a small smile. But in exactly 14 days, the first human expeditionary force will arrive at whatever location you choose. We will be ready to fight. Thexerin's mouth parts clicked rapidly, which Miho had learned meant the alien was very confused or surprised. Very well. The Council accepts humanity's commitment. Though I must say, I do not think you fully understand what you are facing. The meeting ended shortly after. As the various ambassadors began leaving the chamber, Yuna walked up beside Miho. She looked out at the stars visible through the crystal walls. Sir, do you think they will be surprised when they see what we bring? She asked quietly. Miho continued staring at the distant stars. Earth was out there somewhere, already mobilizing. They think we are children who know nothing about war, he said. They are about to learn something important. They are about to learn why we have worked so hard to build peace. Because we know exactly what war costs. 2 weeks later, the designated staging area near Luna Base was filled with activity. Massive orbital platforms circled Earth's moon, and the space around them was crowded with ships. Ships of every size and type stretched as far as the eye could see. Observer Kelther floated in his small shuttle, watching through the viewport with growing disbelief. The council had sent him and several other observers to document humanity's military contribution. They had expected maybe a few dozen ships. Perhaps a few thousand soldiers. Something small and symbolic. What Kelther saw instead made his skin change color with shock. Hundreds of massive transport vessels hung in formation around the moon. Each one was enormous, easily capable of carrying tens of thousands of troops. Smaller warships darted between them like schools of fish. Fighter craft practiced combat maneuvers in organized groups. The whole scene looked like a coordinated dance of metal and fire. "This cannot be accurate," said Vexen, a crystalline observer beside him. His body glowed with confusion. "The sensors must be malfunctioning. They indicate over 2 million human soldiers are being loaded onto those transports." Kelther checked his own instruments. "My sensors show the same numbers. 2.3 million to be exact. Plus another 500,000 support personnel. And look at those warships. They are not ceremonial vessels. Those are battle carriers. Real ones." Down on Luna Base, Commander Suji Nam stood on an observation deck, watching her troops board the transport ships. She was a compact woman with sharp eyes and short black hair. She had spent 20 years in the military fighting in 3 different Earth conflicts. Now she would lead the first human expeditionary force into space. Her second-in-command, Colonel Deho Park, approached with a data pad. "Ma'am, all units are reporting ready. The 7th Marine Division just finished loading. We are ahead of schedule." Suji nodded. "Good. What about the weapons?" "All loaded and secured. Kinetic artillery, nuclear missiles, railgun batteries, and the new plasma lances. We brought everything that wasn't nailed down and some things that were." Through the window, Suji could see soldiers marching in neat lines toward the transport ships. They wore combat armor in gray and black. They carried weapons that looked brutal and efficient. These were not parade soldiers. These were warriors who had trained their entire lives for combat. The alien observers looked confused, Deho said with a slight smile. "I do not think they expected this." "They never do," Suji replied. Up in his shuttle, Kelther was recording everything with his instruments. He spoke into his communications device, sending a report back to the council. "This is Observer Kelther reporting from the human staging area. I must revise all previous estimates. Humanity is not sending a token force. They are sending an entire army. Their ships appear functional and combat-ready. Many show signs of previous battle damage that has been repaired. These vessels have seen war before." He zoomed his camera toward one particularly large carrier ship. The hull was covered in small marks and scratches. Someone had painted a picture on the side showing a fierce animal with sharp teeth. Below it were words in human language and small symbols that looked like they were counting something. "What are those markings?" Vexen asked. Kelther accessed the translation database. "The words say, Iron Phoenix. The symbols appear to be kill counts. Records of enemy ships destroyed. This vessel alone claims 37 kills." 37? In what war? Humans have been at peace with the galaxy for 50 years. "Not with each other," Kelther said quietly. "I have been reading their history files. Humans have been fighting wars on their own planet for thousands of years. Constant wars. They only stopped fighting each other when they joined the council." The realization hit both observers at the same moment. These humans were not playing at being soldiers. They were actual soldiers. Professional warriors from a species that had spent its entire existence perfecting the art of war. On one of the transport ships, soldiers from different Earth nations sat together preparing their equipment. A young private named Hajin Lee checked his rifle for the 10th time. Next to him, a sergeant named Taewoo Choi was teaching soldiers a marching song in Korean. Across the bay, other squads sang their own songs in different languages. Despite coming from different nations and cultures, they all wore the same uniform now. They all served under the same flag. The flag of Earth. The flag of humanity united. "Do you think the aliens will respect us after this?" Hajin asked nervously. Taewoo looked up from his weapon. "I do not care if they respect us. I care that we protect the innocent people in the colonies. That is why we are here. That is always why we fight." Outside the ship, the last of the cargo was being loaded. Massive cannons. Missiles the size of buildings. Ammunition containers stacked in endless rows. Combat vehicles. Medical supplies. Everything an army would need for a long campaign. Commander Suji watched as the final transport sealed its doors. She picked up her communication device. "All ships, this is Commander Nam. Final status check." One by one the ship captains reported in. "All ready. All prepared. 2 million soldiers ready to march into battle. Then let us show the galaxy what humanity can do, Suji said. All ships prepare for jump to hyperspace. Destination, Calrex system. We have a war to fight. The engines of hundreds of ships began to glow. One by one they disappeared into hyperspace, leaving trails of light behind them. The human armada was on the march. Kelthar watched them go, still recording everything. He would send this report to the council, but he knew they would not believe it. Not until they saw it with their own eyes. Humanity was not coming to observe. They were coming to win. The Calrex system hung in space like a dying ember. 3 planets orbited a red sun, and the middle planet had once been home to 2 million colonists. Now it was silent. The Vrex swarm had taken everything. The Allied fleet arrived first. 20 Council warships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming and unmarked. They were beautiful vessels, designed by species who had known centuries of peace. Energy shields shimmered around them like soap bubbles. Their weapons hummed with charged particles ready to fire. General Kravos stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the scanner displays. The Vrex are in orbit around the colony world. Scanners show approximately 500 bioships. They are feeding on the remains. Observer Kelthar stood nearby, still documenting everything. When will the humans arrive? As if answering his question, space suddenly tore open. One by one, human ships dropped out of hyperspace. But these were nothing like the Council vessels. These ships looked like they had been through hell and came back stronger. Scorch marks covered their hulls. Patches of different colored metal showed where repairs had been made. And painted across their sides were images that made Kelthar's skin crawl. Skulls. Flames. Fierce animals with bared teeth. And numbers. Always numbers, counting their kills. Commander Suji Nam stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Iron Phoenix. Her officers moved efficiently around her, checking weapons and systems. Through the main viewport, she could see the Council ships holding position at a safe distance. They are maintaining defensive formation, her tactical officer Minjae reported. Staying outside the Vrex weapon range. Of course they are, Suji said. That is what their training tells them to do. Play it safe. Minimize losses. Fight defensively. She leaned forward in her chair. Send a message to all human ships. We are going in. Ma'am? Minjae looked uncertain. Should we not coordinate with the Allied fleet first? They can follow if they want. Open a channel to all ships. The communication officer nodded. Channel open, Commander. This is Commander Nam to all human forces. We did not travel across the galaxy to play defense. Those things down there destroyed innocent lives. They need to pay for that. All ships full attack speed. Let us show these monsters what happens when they threaten humanity's allies. On the Council flagship, General Kravos watched in horror as the human fleet suddenly accelerated. What are they doing? They are charging directly at the Vrex swarm. That is suicide. The human ships picked up speed, racing toward the mass of Vrex bioships. The alien vessels were hideous things, all organic curves and pulsing tissue. They looked more like giant insects than spacecraft. As the humans approached, the Vrex swarm began to move, forming their standard attack pattern. They are spreading out to surround the humans, Kravos said. This is how the Vrex fight. They overwhelm with numbers. The humans have made a terrible mistake. But then the human ships opened fire, and Kelthar understood why the Council had been so wrong about humanity. Railguns fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. They punched through Vrex bioships like bullets through paper. Nuclear missiles left white trails as they streaked toward their targets, detonating in brilliant flashes that destroyed multiple enemies at once. Laser batteries cut through organic armor, leaving burning wounds in the Vrex vessels. And through it all, music played. Kelthar could pick it up on the open communication channels. The humans were broadcasting music while they fought. Loud, aggressive music with heavy drums and electric guitars. It was unlike anything the peaceful Council species had ever created. Insane, Kravos whispered. They are completely insane. The human ships did not stay at range like the Council vessels. They dove straight into the Vrex formation, firing in all directions. Their smaller fighter craft swarmed around the bioships like angry wasps. When Vrex ships tried to grab human vessels with their tentacles, the humans fired thrusters and spun away, never stopping their attack. Suji watched her tactical display as red enemy markers began disappearing. Target their cluster formations. Hit them where they group together. Minjae, prepare boarding teams. Boarding teams? The officer looked shocked. Commander, we cannot board Vrex ships. They're organic. full of toxic atmosphere and they have a central nerve cluster that controls each ship. We studied the intelligence reports. If we take out those clusters, the ships die. Prepare the marine teams. Full combat gear and breach pods. 10 minutes later, small pods launched from the human carriers. They were shaped like bullets designed to punch through enemy hulls. They slammed into Vrex bioships and cut through the organic armor with spinning blades. Inside one pod, Sergeant Taewoo Choi and his squad waited in the darkness. The cutting stopped. The door blew open. They rushed into the interior of the Vrex ship, their helmet lights cutting through the gloom. The inside was a nightmare. Walls made of pulsing flesh. Fluids dripping from the ceiling. And Vrex drones, small creatures with too many legs and snapping jaws, rushing toward them. Open fire. Taewoo shouted. The Marines fired their weapons. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Vrex drones fell, but more came. The Marines pushed forward, following the map on their helmet displays. They needed to reach the nerve cluster at the ship's center. They fought through corridors of living tissue. They threw grenades into chambers full of enemies. They covered each other and moved as one unit, like they had trained to do 1,000 times before. Finally, they reached it. A massive pulsing organ the size of a small room. The nerve cluster. The brain of the ship. Plant the charges, Taewoo ordered. His demolition expert, Private Hajin Lee, moved forward with explosive packs. His hands shook as he attached them to the organic walls around the nerve cluster. Charges set. 30 seconds. Everyone back to the pod. Move, move, move. They ran back through the dying ship. Behind them, the charges detonated. The entire vessel shuddered. The lights in their helmets flickered as the bioship began to die around them. They made it back to their breach pod with seconds to spare. The pod launched, rocketing back toward the human fleet. Behind them, the Vrex bioship drifted dead in space. On the Council flagship, Kravos could not believe what he was seeing. They are boarding the enemy ships. They are actually going inside those things and destroying them from within. No species has ever attempted such a tactic against the Vrex. The battle raged for 3 hours. When it finally ended, 200 Vrex bioships floated dead in space. The remaining 300 retreated into hyperspace, fleeing from an enemy they could not understand. The human fleet regrouped, battered but victorious. They had lost 15 ships and taken heavy casualties. But they had won. Kelther recorded everything with trembling hands. They do not fight like any species I have ever studied. They do not calculate odds or minimize risk. They just attack. They charge forward no matter the cost. How does any species survive with such tactics? General Kravos looked at the human ships with new eyes. Because, Observer Kelther, when every member of your species fights like that, your enemies learn to fear you. The Vrex have never faced anything like humanity before. Neither have we. The battle was over, but the cost was clear. Commander Suji Nam walked through the medical bay of the Iron Phoenix, her boots clicking on the metal floor. Injured soldiers lay on beds that lined both walls. Some had burns. Others had broken bones. A few were missing limbs, waiting for the medical robots to fit them with replacements. A young Marine named Yunji sat on one bed, her left arm wrapped in bandages. She looked up as Suji approached and immediately tried to stand. "Stay seated, Private," Suji said gently. "How are you feeling?" "Ready to fight again, Commander," Yunji said. Her face was pale with pain, but her eyes were determined. "The doctors say I will be cleared for duty in 2 weeks." Suji looked at the medical chart. The private had taken shrapnel from an exploding Vrex drone. She should have been dead. "You fought well. Your squad leader says you saved 3 lives. "Just doing my job, ma'am." Suji moved on, stopping at each bed to speak with the wounded. This was the part of command she hated most. Seeing the price of victory written on the faces of her soldiers. But it was also the most important part. These people needed to know their sacrifice mattered. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out on every human ship. The butcher's bill was heavy. 8,000 dead. 20,000 wounded. 40% casualties in a single battle. Numbers that would have horrified the Council species. But humanity had won. On the Council flagship, Observer Kelther sat in a small office, surrounded by data screens. He had been reviewing human military history for the past 6 hours. What he found shocked him to his core. General Kravos entered the room. "You sent me an urgent message. What have you discovered?" Kelther pulled up a timeline on the main screen. It showed thousands of years of human history, marked with countless red dots. Each red dot represents a major war on Earth. "Look at the density. There is barely any time between conflicts." Kravos leaned closer. That cannot be accurate. No species fights that much and survives. I thought the same thing. So I verified everything. General, humans have been at war for their entire recorded history. They have fought each other continuously for at least 5,000 years. Maybe longer. Kelther pulled up another file. The First World War. 20 million dead. The Second World War. 70 million dead. And those were just 2 conflicts in the span of 30 years. By the ancestors, Kravos whispered. How did they not destroy themselves? They came close. Many times. But they always pulled back from the edge. And each war taught them new tactics. New strategies. They learned from every conflict. Kelther switched to video footage from Earth's recent history. Soldiers fighting in deserts. In jungles. In frozen mountains. In cities reduced to rubble. While we have been at peace for 300 years, they have been perfecting the art of war for 3,000. Kravos sat down heavily. We made a terrible error in judgment. We thought they were weak because they chose peace when they joined the council. No, Kelther said quietly. They chose peace precisely because they know the true cost of war. They value peace more than we do because they have paid for it in blood. Over and over again. The door opened. High Counselor Thexerin entered, his insectoid features tense. I have just received the casualty reports from the human fleet. 8,000 dead in one battle. This is unacceptable. We must protest their reckless tactics. With respect, High Counselor, Kelther said, I do not think you understand what happened today. I understand that humans threw away lives needlessly. They won, Kravos said firmly. Against odds that would have forced any council species to retreat. They charged into an enemy that outnumbered them 2-1 and they won. Yes, they took heavy casualties. But they accomplished the mission. Thexerin's mandibles clicked in agitation. There must be a better way. A way that does not cost so many lives. Perhaps, Kelther said. But the Vreks do not negotiate. They do not retreat. They only consume. The humans understood that immediately. They knew this was a fight to the death, so they fought like it. Later that day, Thexerin visited the human medical ships. He wanted to see the wounded for himself. Maybe if he understood their condition, he could convince their commanders to adopt more conservative tactics. He entered one medical bay and stopped. The room was full of injured humans, but the atmosphere was nothing like he expected. Soldiers were talking and laughing with each other. Some were playing games. Others were exercising the parts of their bodies that still worked. A human doctor named Yuna approached him. High Counselor, welcome. Is there something I can help you with? I came to see the wounded. To understand the cost of the battle. Of course. Please look around. Thexerin moved through the bay slowly. He stopped at one bed where a young soldier named Jehun lay. The human had lost both legs below the knee. Robotic replacements were being fitted. Soldier, Thexerin said through his translator. I am sorry for your injuries. You have sacrificed much. Jehun looked up at the alien leader. No apologies needed, sir. I knew what I signed up for. But your legs. You have lost your legs. Your life will never be the same. The young soldier smiled. My life is fine, sir. These robot legs the docs are giving me work better than my old ones anyway. I will be back with my unit in a month. You want to return to combat? After this? Of course. My brothers and sisters are still out there. They need me. And there are still people who need protecting from the Vreks. Jehun's expression became serious. High Counselor, can I tell you something? Please do. We do not fight because we hate what is in front of us. We fight because we love what is behind us. Our families. Our homes. Our friends. And now, the innocent people in the colonies who cannot protect themselves. That love is worth any sacrifice. Thexerin stood silent for a long moment. He had lived for 200 years and led the council for 50. He had thought he understood all the species under his care. But he had been wrong about humanity. Completely wrong. They were not reckless. They were not foolish. They were something far more dangerous and far more valuable. They were warriors who chose to fight not for glory or conquest, but for protection, for love. That evening, the council held an emergency session. Thexerin addressed the assembly with new understanding in his voice. My fellow council members, I have seen the human wounded. I have spoken with their soldiers. And I have learned something important. We invited humanity to join this war thinking they were children who needed guidance. They arrived as warriors who have forgotten more about combat than we ever knew. We are fortunate that they fight beside us and not against us. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate understood the weight of those words. From this day forward, Thexerin continued, humanity will lead all council military operations. They have earned that right with their courage and their sacrifice. We will learn from them. And perhaps, if we are very lucky, we will become worthy allies of such a fierce and loyal people. Observer Kelther recorded everything. History was being made. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. 3 months had passed since the first battle. The war against the Vrex swarm had become a grinding campaign across a dozen star systems. The Council fleet had grown larger, with more species sending ships to join the fight. But everyone knew the real work was being done by the humans. Now they faced their greatest challenge. The Vrex home world, hidden deep in uncharted space. A massive planet covered in organic structures where the central hive mind controlled everything. If they could destroy the hive mind, the entire Vrex swarm would collapse. General Kravos presented the Council's battle plan to the assembled commanders. A holographic display showed the Vrex home world surrounded by thousands of bioships and defensive platforms. "We will establish a blockade," Kravos explained. "Cut off their supply lines. Starve them slowly. In 2, perhaps 3 years they will weaken enough for us to attack safely." Commander Suji Nam stood up from her seat. 3 years? How many more colonies will they destroy in 3 years? How many more innocent people will die? Commander Nam, I understand your frustration, but the tactical analysis is clear. A direct assault would be suicide. They outnumber us 100 to 1. The orbital defenses alone could destroy our entire fleet. Suji looked around the room at the other human officers. Colonel Deho Park nodded slightly. Captain Yuna gave her a determined look. They all knew what needed to be said. "Then humanity will attack alone," Suji said calmly. "Give us your support if you can. But we are not waiting 3 years." The room erupted in protest. Alien commanders stood, shouting in dozens of languages. High Counselor Thexerin raised his limbs for silence. "Commander Nam, this is madness. You cannot assault that world with the forces you have. It is mathematically impossible. Counselor, with respect, we did not come this far to play it safe. Those creatures have killed millions. They will kill millions more if we give them time. We are ending this now." Observer Kelther leaned toward Thexerin. "High Counselor, I have studied their history. When humans decide something must be done, they do it. Regardless of the cost. I do not think we can stop them." Thexerin looked at Suji for a long moment. "Very well. The Council fleet will provide long-range support. But the assault will be yours to lead. May your ancestors watch over you, Commander Nam." 2 days later, the human fleet gathered at the edge of the Vrex home system. Every ship was ready. Every soldier had written final messages to their families. They all knew this might be a one-way mission. Suji stood on the bridge of the Iron Phoenix looking at her crew. "Open a channel to all ships." The communication officer nodded. "Channel open, Commander. This is Commander Suji Nam to all human forces. Today we face our greatest test. The odds are against us. The enemy is strong. Many of us will not survive what comes next." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But we are not here for glory. We are not here to prove anything. We are here because innocent people need us. Because someone must stand against the darkness. Because that is what humanity does. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. All ships begin the attack. Let us finish this." The human fleet jumped into hyperspace. They emerged directly above the Vrex home world, catching the defenders by surprise. Immediately, thousands of Vrex bioships swarmed toward them like angry insects. "All batteries open fire," Suji ordered. "Give them everything we have." The Iron Phoenix shook as its massive railguns fired. Nuclear missiles streaked away in white trails. Fighter craft launched from carrier bays, forming protective screens around the larger ships. The space around the Vrex world became a storm of weapons fire and explosions. The Vrex fought back with terrifying ferocity. Their bioships fired organic projectiles that ate through ship armor. Tentacles reached out to grab human vessels and crush them. Swarm after swarm of small fighters attacked from all directions. Human ships began to fall. The destroyer Morning Star exploded in a ball of flame. The carrier Indomitable listed to one side, its engines failing. But for every human ship that died, it took dozens of Vrex vessels with it. "Commander, we have lost 40% of the fleet," Minjay reported, his voice tight with stress. "The orbital defenses are too strong. We cannot break through." Suji studied the tactical display. He was right. At this rate, they would all be destroyed before reaching the surface. She made a decision that would haunt her forever. Order all remaining carriers to launch ground forces. Every drop pod, every transport. Get our Marines on that planet. Then pull back what is left of the fleet. "Ma'am, if we pull back the fleet, the ground forces will have no support. No way to evacuate." "I know. Do it anyway." Thousands of drop pods launched from the human carriers. They fell through the atmosphere like meteors, burning bright as they descended. Vrex fighters tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. The pods slammed into the surface of the Vrex home world, and human marines poured out, weapons ready. Sergeant Taewoo Choi led his squad through a nightmare landscape. The ground itself was alive, pulsing with organic tissue. Strange structures grew from the earth like cancerous tumors. And everywhere Vrex drones attacked in endless waves. "Keep moving," Taewoo shouted. "Head for the central structure. That is where the hive mind is." His squad fought block by block through the alien city. Private Hajin Lee fired his rifle until the barrel glowed red. Private Yunji threw grenades with her one good arm, the other still healing from the first battle. They all fought with desperate courage, knowing they would probably never leave this world. Above them, the human fleet fought a desperate holding action. Ship after ship was destroyed, but they kept firing, kept fighting, giving the ground forces as much time as possible. Commander Suji watched her fleet die around her. 15 ships left. Then 10. Then 5. "Commander, we have to retreat," Minjae urged. "We have done all we can." "Not yet. Not until the ground teams reach the hive mind." On the surface, Taiwa's squad finally reached the central structure. A massive organic tower that pulsed with sickly light. Inside would be the core of the hive mind. The brain that controlled the entire Vrex swarm. "Plant the antimatter charges," Taewoo ordered. "Every one we have." His team worked quickly, placing the powerful explosives around the base of the structure. They could hear Vrex drones approaching from all directions. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. "Charges set," Hajin reported. "Detonation in 5 minutes." "Can we make it back to the extraction point in 5 minutes?" Yunji asked. Taewoo checked his map. The nearest extraction point was 15 minutes away. He looked at his squad. Young faces. Scared faces. Brave faces. "No," he said simply. "We cannot." His squad accepted this without complaint. They had known from the beginning this might be how it ended. "Then we hold here," Yunji said, raising her rifle. "Keep the Vrex away from the charges. Give them time to detonate." The squad formed a defensive circle around the charges. The Vrex came at them in waves. The Marines fired until their ammunition ran low, then switched to backup weapons, then to combat knives. Taewoo fought alongside his soldiers, knowing these were his last moments. He thought of his family back on Earth. His parents. His little sister. He hoped they would be proud. The charges detonated. The antimatter explosion tore through the central structure, destroying the hive mind in an instant. The blast wave killed everything within 10 kilometers, including Taewoo and his entire squad. But it worked. Across the galaxy, every Vrex ship suddenly went dark. The hive mind was dead, and without it, the swarm could not function. Billions of Vrex drones simply stopped moving, their connection severed. The war was over. Commander Suji received the confirmation on her bridge. The Iron Phoenix was the last human ship still flying. Every other vessel had been destroyed. Of the 2 million soldiers who started this campaign, less than 300,000 remained. "The hive mind is destroyed," the censor officer reported quietly. "The Vrex are defeated." Suji closed her eyes. Victory tasted like ashes in her mouth. So many dead. So many sacrifices. But they had won. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council held a memorial ceremony on their station. Representatives from every species attended. The names of every fallen human soldier were read aloud. It took 6 hours. High Counselor Thexerin stood before the assembled delegates. "Today we honor the human warriors who gave everything to protect this galaxy. They faced impossible odds. They knew they would likely die. They charged forward anyway. We will never forget their sacrifice. From this day forward, humanity will be known as the Guardians of the Outer Rim. They have earned that title with their blood." On Earth, monuments were being built in every city. Commander Suji Nam attended the dedication of the memorial for Sergeant Taewoo Choi and his squad. A young recruit named Sung Min stood nearby, watching the ceremony with tears in his eyes. After the ceremony ended, Sung Min approached a recruitment office. He would join the military. He would become a Marine. He would honor those who had fallen by continuing their mission. Because that was what humanity did. They stood against the darkness. They protected the innocent. They marched into impossible battles not because they loved war, but because they loved peace enough to fight for it. And the galaxy would never be the same.